The Galactic Council chamber was alive with color and energy, there shimmering with soft holographic patterns that rippled with each murmur of amusement. Hundreds of delegates, representing countless species from the far reaches of the galaxy, sat on their suspended platforms, exchanging glances filled with humor and thinly veiled mockery. The grand display screen at the front of the chamber flickered, bringing up the official record from the classification division, Earth Class. A chorus of laughter rang out, some melodic, some buzzing, others emitting light pulses of amusement. The council speaker, a tall, Christine being named, raised a shimmering appendage to calm the room, though their own eyes sparkled with barely concealed mirth. It seems, intoned with a playful lilt, that the human's home world has been labeled formidable. I dare say this is perhaps the greatest misinterpretation in council history. The delegates chuckled again, and more than a few playful bets were whispered along telepathic frequencies and subtle chemical signals. What could possibly be so dangerous about a world that bred beings who smiled so easily and made endless noise? The scientific representatives of the hive cluster chimed in, projecting their analysis on the display. The humans appear to thrive in environments of unpredictable weather, aggressive, and even unstable geological conditions. They seem unusually durable, though their technological level is still maturing. Laughter bubbled again. The representatives of the Avani, feathered and elegant, cooed gently. Perhaps they simply exaggerate their resilience for show. We all know how dramatic they can be. But curiosity had taken root. The council's historian archive bloomed with interest as records of human expeditions to their own world's extremes flashed across the room. Storms, ice, molten rock, and unpredictable wildlife. Ever the diplomat raised their voice. What better way to resolve this curiosity than with observation? I propose we grant the humans a trial challenge. Let them set foot upon VA, now a paradise planet. The room fell briefly silent as images of VA, now swirled across the west chamber. Vast meadows of soft bioluminescent grass, gentle rain cycles, an atmosphere filled with pleasant fragrances, and wildlife so docile they seemed almost a ornamenta. The very embodiment of peace and balance. The proposition sent ripples of excitement and more than a few smug smiles across the delegates. It was the perfect test. Place the allegedly tough species in an environment with no chaos, no conflict, and watch them slowly unravel in boredom or confusion. The council's planning committee immediately began drawing up the terms. A small exploratory team of humans would be invited to VA, now with the premise of studying its natural resources. No interference, no warnings. Observing vessels would hover in silent orbit to document every reaction, every stumble, every laughable misunderstanding. Bets were placed on how long it would take for the humans to begin bickering, to invent conflict where there was none. Some wagered a week, others said 3 days. A few of the more cynical delegates guessed that they would last mere hours before causing their own chaos in an environment that had no need for it. Ambassador of the brood, ever sarcastic, added dryly, perhaps they'll start arguing with the trees. A round of hissing laughter followed. The formal vote commenced. As the shimmering light tally floated into the center of the chamber, there was no doubt of the outcome. Unanimous approval. The council chambers shifted into celebratory hues of green and gold. The council speaker stood once more. It is settled. The humans will be given the honor of experiencing VA. No. We, in turn, will observe and learn. The delegates' amusement was palpable. The scene dissolved into a reception filled with whispered excitement. In the corridors beyond, young aides and attendants of various species exchanged their own speculations. Some felt a twinge of guilt, perhaps this was too cruel, placing the chaotic creatures of Earth into a world where they might simply collapse and in the absence of challenge. But most dismissed these concerns. The humans had faced volcanic eruptions, winds, and toxic creatures that would send most sentients into immediate retreat. Surely they could handle a gentle paradise. Or at the very least, they would become an amusing footnote in council history, a species that could conquer extremes but stumbled in serenity. As the council session adjourned, the west chamber slowly dimmed, leaving only soft glimmers of starlight projected onto the crystalline ceiling. Somewhere in that vast map of stars, Earth shimmered brightly. A small, blue world whose inhabitants had no idea they were about to become the center of galactic amusement. The joke had begun. The sleek observation vessel hovered silently over VA, now its advanced cloaking systems rendering it invisible to the human expedition below. Inside, an array of alien delegates sat in their respective monitoring stations, each species eager to observe how the humans would fare in a world so calm, so unchallenging, that it had never once been classified as anything more than a leisure retreat. The council chamber had been filled with smug laughter when the mission had been approved, and now the assembled dignitaries waited, eyes and sensory tendrils fixed on the live feeds projected across the walls of the ship. The humans had landed a mere 6 hours ago, and the betting pools were already in full swing. Some expected immediate frustration, others assumed boredom would set in within the day, and the more cynical among them were convinced that humans would create unnecessary problems just to entertain themselves. The first images streamed in, showing the human team, a group of scientists, explorers, and survivalists, stepping out onto the lush fields of VA. No. The planet was every bit the paradise it had been promised to be. Gentle rolling hills, a sky painted in soft lavender hues, a sun that emitted a perfectly balanced warmth, and an ecosystem so peaceful that even its predators seemed to exist only in theoretical form. Strange, luminescent flowers released a calming scent into the air, and the distant sound of a waterfall added to the overwhelming serenity. The humans stood in silence, taking in the scene before them, their expressions unreadable. From the observation vessel, a delegate, whose species thrived on harsh volcanic worlds, let out a clicking laugh. They don't know what to do with themselves, he mused, his bioluminescent skin pulsing with amusement. No immediate danger, no survival instincts to engage. Watch, they will be restless within hours. A ripple of agreement spread through the gathered dignitaries, as all eyes turned back to the projection. But something strange began to happen. The humans did not immediately collapse into boredom. Instead, they began to move with purpose. The lead scientist, Dr. Evelyn Carter, knelt by a nearby patch of iridescent moss, her fingers running gently across its surface. "This is fascinating," she murmured, her voice transmitted clearly into the observation deck. "This plant's bioluminescence isn't just for aesthetics, it reacts to touch, like it's responding to stimuli." Another human, a botanist, grinned and began taking samples. "We could study this for years." In the background, a few others were already setting up camp, not out of necessity, since the planet posed no immediate threats, but simply out of habit. They constructed shelters, not because they needed protection, but because they could. Others began testing the water, analyzing the soil composition, cataloging every detail of the environment with a fervor the aliens had not expected. What had been predicted to be a slow descent into listless confusion was instead unfolding as an energetic embrace of the unknown. The delegate, a being covered in fine, shimmering scales, hissed in surprise. They are treating this like a challenge. They are not relaxing at all." Hours passed. The aliens continued watching. The humans showed no signs of growing restless or irritable. Instead, they adapted, as though their minds could not accept stillness as an option. A group of them had begun climbing a low rock formation, laughing and cheering as if it were some great mountain to be conquered. Another group was experimenting with different types of food synthesis, roasting native fruits over an open flame, not for survival, but for variety, for enjoyment. A few of them had even started a competition, seeing who could craft the most effective tools out of the natural resources around them. On the observation vessel, murmurs of disbelief echoed through the chamber. "They are turning paradise into a proving ground," an Avani delegate whispered, ruffling their feathers in confusion. The true shock came as night fell. No sky darkened into a breathtaking tapestry of stars, and the soft glow of the planet's plant life turned the landscape into a surreal dreamscape of blues, purples, and silvers. Where most species would take this time to rest, to enjoy the peace, the humans did something unexpected. They built a fire. Not for warmth, not for necessity, simply because they could. They sat around it, telling stories, exchanging jokes, their faces illuminated by flickering golden light. One of them pulled out a small stringed instrument, its soft melody filling the air. The aliens watching from above were utterly silent, stand into inaction. They had expected discomfort. They had expected confusion. They had not expected joy. The humans were thriving, not despite the peace, but because of it. They were explorers, experimenters, challengers of the unknown, and if the unknown was too gentle, they would reshape it into something worth exploring. A silence stretched across the observation vessel. The smug amusement that had once filled the room had evaporated, replaced with something else, unease, perhaps even respect. The council speaker observed quietly before finally murmuring, "We assumed a species could not survive without adversity. We never considered that they might simply redefine survival itself." In the feed, the humans continued laughing under the starlit sky, unaware of the silent audience watching them in awe. The third cycle on VA now began with golden sunlight filtering through soft, crystalline leaves, and yet again, the humans greeted it not with laziness or discontent but with new projects, challenges, and ideas. From the observation vessel, the alien council members had long abandoned their smug amusement. Now, they leaned forward with genuine fascination and growing disbelief. The scenario had become a series of unpredictable improvisations. The humans were not only surviving but transforming paradise into an playground for creativity. Dr. Evelyn Carter gathered her team near a gentle riverbank, laying out a plan for mapping and naming the river systems on the planet. "We could leave them unnamed," one geographer had offered, "but where's the fun in that?" They'd began assigning names based on personal experiences and inside jokes. The coffee tributary was a stream near camp, where they'd discovered a plant whose scent eerily resembled roasted coffee beans. The largest river became the great side quest, in honor of their tendency to turn everything into an adventure. Watching this from a orbit, the delegate's tendrils curled in confusion. "They are playing," she muttered. "They are treating exploration as sport." Soon after, footage showed a group of engineers testing small rafts on the coffee tributary. No dire need to cross. No challenge. Merely curiosity and a shared smile. They fell in the water, laughed, tried again, and modified the rafts for greater stability. Some had turned to crafting. An artist among them used native pigments to create enormous murals on smooth stone faces, depicting humanity's history of exploration, struggle, and resilience. They weren't surviving VA, no, they were leaving their mark upon it. The alien delegates watched as these humans, meant to be adrift in perfection, instead wove their restless ingenuity into everything. No problem. Invent van. No challenge. Create van. One of the scientists taught others how to build and fly simple gliders using the flexible membranes of native plants. The skies soon filled with makeshift flying devices soaring and spiraling, laughter echoing across the gentle valley. A debate broke out on the observation deck. The delegate, known for their mathematical precision, shook his head. "It goes against logic. The absence of threat or urgency should lead to entropy in their behavior. They should relax, become idle." "But they are," the Avani delegate countered softly. "Their instincts are different. Perhaps struggle is not a condition of survival for them, but a condition of identity." Below, the humans were preparing a grand feast, not because they lacked food or feed scarcity, but to celebrate the first 3 days of discovery. They invented haladus, rituals, and shared traditions in record time. Alien observers watched as makeshift tables were adorned with colorful fruits, roasted roots, and dishes blended from native and rationed supplies. Someone began telling stories around the fire again, but this time, they weren't just recounting Earth's past, they were crafting new legends of VA, no, tales of the first glide and flight, the day someone fell into the coffee tributary 3 times in a row, and the great quest of building a hammer city between two massive crystalline trees. Laughter echoed through the observation vessel. But this time, it wasn't smug. It was startled admiration. Even the most skeptical delegates began to recognize something they hadn't anticipated. Humans did not need danger to feel alive. They only needed the possibility of creation. Every moment without conflict became an opportunity for innovation. The next surprise came that night. A storm formed on the horizon, soft and harmless by standards, but the humans gathered to watch with reverence, setting up blankets and reclining beneath the shelter of large leaves. Some took notes on cloud formation patterns, others simply watched the lightning with wide smiles, whispering that even paradise had its beauty amplified by contrast. The storm passed gently, leaving the sky sparkling with double rainbows by morning. On the council ship, a silent vote was cast among the observers. Should the humans be reclassified? Not as a species, not as explorers out of place in peace, but as something else entirely, adapters. The committee scribes prepared new documents with hesitant pens. Meanwhile, the humans had already planned the next day's activities. The gliders were to be tested in group formations. The artists wanted to paint the double rainbow phenomenon onto the canyon walls. The geologists wanted to descend into the mild caverns for mapping and study. All without the push of survival instincts. All from curiosity, passion, and endless restlessness. The delegate spoke up at last, her voice filled with reluctant respect. They do not fear paradise, she said softly. They refuse to be subdued by it. They turn ease into art, boredom into challenge, stillness into opportunity. Back on the surface, Evelyn Carter recorded a message to Earth. "VA, no isn't a paradise, it's a canvas. And humans, we're painters." The transmission echoed across frequencies, reaching not just Earth but the orbiting observation ship. In that moment, everyone understood. Paradise wasn't something humans feared or rejected. It was something they could conquer in their own peculiar way, not with violence or domination, but with creativity and purpose. The 10th day on VA, now dawned with a surreal calm that would have unnerved any other species. The perfect pastel skies and gentle breeze whispered serenity, but for the humans, it was simply another blank page waiting for them to scribble on. The council observers had by now given up trying to predict human behavior. Instead, they watched in silence as humanity did what it always did when left to its own devices: build, play, and push limits. Today was the culmination of that unpredictable energy, a grand event they dubbed the Vallis Games, organized completely on a whim, with challenges designed not for survival, but for fun. Down in the lush valley, hundreds of humans gathered in friendly competition. The first event was a gliding race through the crystalline canyons. Shimmering wings soared and dipped, with competitors laughing even when they crashed, eager to improve designs. Children from the colonist families lined the cliffs, waving homemade flags and cheering. The council's holographic feed showed one participant, Lieutenant Jackson, executing a turn that sent his gliding spiraling upward, catching an updraft, and landing gracefully on a rocky perch. He threw his arms up in triumph and laughter, not because he had conquered danger, but because he had bent tranquility into excitement. In another arena, teams were building intricate structures out of native flexible branches and iridescent leaves, temporary sculptures that seemed almost alive, glistening and swaying in the gentle wind. At night, they would set tiny phosphorescent insects inside these structures, turning them into glowing art installations. Back on the observation vessel, the council members sat in stunned silence. The delegate broke the quiet first. "They do not simply adapt," he murmured. "They embellish." The final event of the Vallis Games was perhaps the most human of all, storytelling by the fire. Around a massive bonfire crafted with care, hundreds gathered as the sun set and the sky blazed with colors that no artist could have fully captured. There were no monsters to battle, no crises to solve, but still, the stories flowed like water. Lieutenant Commander Evans told the tale of the great side quest river and how he'd fallen in not once, but 5 times during a single mapping mission. Laughter echoed across the valley. Another colonist recounted the legend of the double rainbow, embellishing the serene moment with playful mythos about how it was a sign of friendship between VA, No and Earth. The children chimed in with their own tales of the Hammer City, describing it as a palace in the trees where dreams were made, and the gentle creaking of woven fibers became lullabies. The Avani delegate, watching from a orbit, whispered to no one in particular. They weave myth where others would see only stone and wind. But the most remarkable moment came as the flames crackled low and a hush fell over the gathering. Dr. Evelyn Carter rose, her face glowing in the firelight. "We came here expecting to endure," she said softly. "But we found a paradise that did not challenge us. So we did what humans always do, we challenged ourselves. And in doing so, we made VA, No ours." She paused, glancing up at the stars. "This place will not remember our struggle. But it will remember our stories. That's how we leave our mark." The council delegates aboard the ship exchanged glances heavy with realization. The ambassador finally spoke aloud what they all had begun to understand. "They are not by necessity," she said slowly. "They are by choice. They need struggle not to survive, but to remain themselves. And when none exists, they invent it." As the humans lay back on soft grass, pointing out constellations and trading dreams, the council ship's main console pulsed with a quiet new designation proposal: Humanity, Classification. The voting commenced silently, the decision unanimous. Down below, the humans sang songs, old earth ballads and new ones crafted just that week. Their voices rose into the night, echoing beyond the valley walls, beyond the atmosphere, reaching even the council ship orbiting far above. And the aliens, beings of logic, calculation, and strategy, sat awestruck at the sheer force of human spirit. As the bonfire dwindled and stars burned bright, the final human tradition of the night began. Each person whispered a wish into the flickering embers, sending them skyward. The council ship's sensors picked up faint shifts in atmospheric particles, harmless, whimsical little disturbances caused by those burning fragments. But more importantly, they picked up hope. Not data, not threat, just hope, tangible and weightless. Dr. Carter recorded her final log for the day, her voice soft and full of satisfaction. "Paradise is not a challenge, but it is a gift. And the human heart, it cannot sit idle in paradise. We will color it, shape it, build on it, because that's who we are." The transmission ended. The council ship silently adjusted course, departing VA, No orbit with one conclusion burned into every ambassador's mind. Paradise was never enough for humanity. They would always create more.